Thank you. Right, so I'm going to talk about a project that we've got going on, phase 1 project, about looking at large-scale data movement. So our key quote really is that user-driven data movement at scale is not a solved problem. You know, if you've got a user who needs to move large amounts of data, then it's not trivial. You think it ought to be, after all these years, you think it ought to be trivial, but for users, turns out this is not trivial. And we've had users trying to move hundreds of terabytes using rsync, very dedicated. They just sit there every evening, set something going, and you know how it is. They just, and a few months later, you don't hear anything, but a few months later they come back to you and say, "Oh, the data's now moved." And you're like, "Oh, okay, fine." And so it just took me a while. I only did it when the system was quiet in the evening, etc. And then you get other users that give you that suddenly a disk appears in the post, and you're like, "Okay." You copy the data onto it and post it off to them, which is not really the way we would hope it would be these days. But that actually, from user perspective, tends to be how it often is. So what we're doing with this project is we're looking at a number of data movement tools. We're trying to and these include rsync, rclone, Globus, Rusio, UPS, hence the parcel, and look at how users use these. And what they can expect, and give them some guidance on using those, where each one is perhaps appropriate, tips on how to use it, because even for some users, even setting up an rsync and that sort of thing is not necessarily trivial, and exploring the problems that users are experiencing when they try to do this. The first thing we have is started to look at is we've got this landscape questionnaire, and there's a QR code on a poster out there, which I've not tested, but I assume it works. Probably should have tested anyway. So questionnaire, if you are involved, or you know people are involved with large scale data movement, please fill that in. It will help us feed back into the roadmap. So currently we've been looking at multiple key use cases, so SKA, exabytes of data, cosmology, Vera Rubin telescope, UKAA, etc. And then those are kind of project partners that have been involved from the start. Then we've also picked up community partners who are looking at some of these. Also, lots of very interesting use cases, different ways that they want to move the data. And what we'll do is, when we get to the final report, we'll summarise these. No AI involved, I promise. We'll summarise these, and that will then go into the final report. But as a brief summary of responses that we've received so far from these projects, you'll see we've got dataset sizes we're talking about things that tend to be in the 100 terabytes or larger scale. That's for these large projects we've filled in. File sizes, individual file sizes, range typically from 10 gigabytes to a terabyte in size. But the users we do have, but they do comment that there are also many small files within those as well. We're looking at use cases where people are taking their data sets to the user's compute, but also the reverse, where people are bringing users to where the data set is to do their computing. We're looking at cutting data out of larger files. Rusio, we found, has been adopted into some workflows and is being considered by more and more projects as part of their workflow management, etc. rsync, as I've discussed, is achievable at the 100 terabyte scales, but not recommended. Access restrictions, that's something we'll be considering, and various of these use cases have different access restrictions, as you would expect. And there is, amongst the user communities of these communities that we surveyed, there is varying degrees of community experience. So some communities are highly experienced with data movement, doing it for years and doing it in what I would say is all the right ways. Others are, it's a new problem, something they're only beginning to explore. There was an interesting tool we found that allows people to do HDF5 streaming over HTTP. Python client makes it look like a native H5 object, and that's very useful. That particular community find for cutting out regions of large data sets. Project team, there's a number of us involved here, mentioned up here, from EPCC, from Durham, from UKAA, Leicester involved as well. So what we're trying to do with this project is look at and identify and remove the obstacles for the large scale data movement. We've been working on some test installations and proof of concepts. As part of this, I like to think we've kind of helped Globus by getting it installed at some extra sites, which really has helped researchers that would otherwise be at a bit of a loss in terms of their data transfer. We're looking at exploring how that works, whether you need a paid license and how that affects performance, looking at data rates that you could expect to get between and drawing up a grid, a bit like if you've seen the perf sonar matrix. We're trying to do something similar with Globus. We have our own Rusio server installed now. We're looking at different clients and different backends and exploring this from the RTP perspective as well. What's involved in the setup, how difficult technically that is, and what the barriers are to getting that set up. For S3, we've got a Storage on-premise cloud storage. It's been used with both Rusio and rclone. We've been looking at rsync transfer rates and guidance for people using rsync as well. Step-by-step instructions have been given and will continue to be updated as new cases are found. We also have, and this was sort of interesting to me that I couldn't find anything like this already, but a data set generator. So this is a generator, very simple Python code, no more than maybe 30, 40 lines, something like that. But you give it a data set name and it will generate the files, identical files that are used for that data set, so that you can do repeatable transfers. So if you want to do some transfer tests with a known data set that's maybe got 1,000 kilobyte files and 10 gigabyte files, you generate it with this data. You have to copy them from somewhere. You just generate it on using this script. You give it the name of the data set, generate it, and then you can use it for your test. It's going to be identical to what others have used. So that really helps with repeatable benchmarking and testing. Yeah, on the to-do list, we want to complete our Rusio installations. We want to look at automated workflow studies. We want to finish our data transfer benchmarking, collate all the completed questionnaires we've got, summarise in a final report, and go on holiday, which actually, for me, in my case, turns out to be in the week of the final meeting. That's a good excuse to get out of it. Conclusion. So we're looking at improved user accessibility. We're looking at enhanced data access, expertise and experience. And this is, I think, key, particularly amongst the RTP community, really building up that experience, how to install, how to manage these tools. A lot of the instructions that are out there are not clear, and just building up that confidence, I think, is key here. So doing some training around that, some skill development. And on that note, actually hot off the press, we are holding a workshop in Durham on the 18th and 19th of May. So put those dates down, come along. Afternoon of the 18th, we're going to be doing a Globus workshop, and then morning of the 19th, it's a Tuesday, we're going to be doing a data transfer workshop. So 18th and 19th of May, do come along to that. There'll be information going out about that at some point. Yeah, what else? The other thing we're looking at, of course, is data governance issues, access legitimacy. Are people accessing data in the way they should, etc. Recommendations that we want to make. Sites actually should put effort into installing data movement tools. This is something that we find a lot of sites. It's kind of, after you get the compute up and going and your job done, you don't really think very much about data movement tools. But actually, it would be one key recommendation, I think, is that sites really want to be thinking about this and putting in effort to getting those up and ready. And another key one, actually, we found Globus is well regarded within the community, and that to me actually will be a key recommendation, that if you want to simplify your users' data transfer into your site, then have Globus, and it's free. You can do it for free. You get better performance if you pay somewhat, but it is free and very easy for users to use. So thank you.